So tomorrow, April the 15th, marks the beginning of Pesach. That is the Jewish festival of Passover. And it's quite interesting that this year, Pesach and the Christian Easter fall around exactly the same time. And so I think it's quite meaningful. And tonight, being Holy Thursday in the Christian calendar, we celebrate what's called the Feast of the Lord's Supper. And of course, this is the setting, if you will, takes place during the Passover Seder. And so Jesus is there with his disciples, and he has asked them to go ahead and to prepare a place for him to celebrate the festival. And so some of the things that are common at Pesach, of course, are the matzah, that is the flat or unleavened bread that Jesus would have used. Also the wine. Now I've got a ceramic wine glass or goblet here, which is probably likely what Jesus would have used. He may have used a semi-precious metal goblet. We don't really know. But I have this ceramic one here. There would have been things like the bitter herbs that are used, and a dipping dish, usually with water and salt. And so at a certain point in the Seder, we are called to dip some of the bitter herbs in the salted water. So Jesus would have taken some, and the disciples dipped it in the salted water. The bitterness for being slaves, the salt, a reminder of their tears and the sweat as they worked and toiled for Pharaoh, and they would have consumed that. And of course, if we know the story, we know that Judas is the one who betrays Jesus, one of the apostles, Judas. And there's a mention at this Last Supper that Jesus says the one who dips in the same bowl as me is the one who will betray me. Now, at modern day Seder meals, everyone will have their own dipping dish, usually even their own matzah sometimes. Everything will be in front of them. But probably in Jesus' time, they would have likely shared a common dish. So there would have been many people dipping into that. So there is a bit of confusion there. They're sort of wondering, well, surely not I, so we hear this. So it's not really that obvious that it's going to be Judas, as some may think. Sometimes he's portrayed as the only one dipping with Jesus, but that probably wasn't likely what happened. So the festival of Pesach or Passover is celebrated in Jerusalem. In Luke's gospel, we see that Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem every year at the Feast of Passover. So this is obviously an important part of the family in which Jesus was raised in. And even in John's gospel, at the beginning of John's gospel, well before the crucifixion, we hear that he was in Jerusalem during the Feast of Passover. So probably Jesus went to Jerusalem more than once, probably as many Passovers as he could to celebrate there, but it's the last one before his death that is the one that is recounted or remembered the most in the Christian calendar. So the matzah that he would have used, he would have taken this bread, and this of course becomes the symbol of his body broken for us. And it is typically broken, at the Seder meal and passed to people. And so again, this is where the host that is used today in the Christian Mass, the Catholic Mass, comes from this bread that is used, of course, being unleavened, as the Hebrew people had to leave Egypt with such haste that they didn't have time to let the bread rise. So it's unleavened bread. And to this day in the Latin Church or the Roman Catholic Church, we use unleavened bread for the Mass. The wine, of course, is in a goblet, and Jesus would have given the blessing for the wine before he passed it along to the others that were in attendance. So today in the Catholic Mass, we really see a lot of representation from this very sacred and special meal. In particular, you know, the cup of wine, the simple cup of wine that Jesus would have used. We now have what's called a chalice, which is a precious metal and inlaid with gold. So this is my personal chalice that was given to me by my family at my ordination. I wanted it very simple, very plain. Sometimes they're quite ornate with a lot of jewels embedded in them and stuff, and maybe even images. But mine is just hammered metal, very, very simple. But I wanted a large symbol. You know, I wanted it to be seen as representing his blood. And the plate that the priest uses is called a paten. So this is coming from the Latin now, on which, you know, the bread that is used for consecration at Mass is kept on the paten. So a lot of wonderful parallels from the Seder meal that are expressed every Sunday, really, in the Catholic Church, in our Catholic Masses. And so this is a very special time of year, and especially special because Pesach and Christian Easter follow on about the same time. So it doesn't happen very often, so it's a wonderful thing. At the end of every Seder meal, the saying is next year in Jerusalem. And so the prayer is always to get back to Jerusalem, to be in Jerusalem, to celebrate these great festivals, because this is God's holy city, of course, the place of the temple. So I want to wish everyone a very happy Pesach and a blessed and happy Easter. And thank you for joining me. Bye for now.
לשנה הבא בירושלים, לשנה הבא בירושלים, לשנה הבא בירושלים.